Alors, bonsoir tout le monde. Bienvenue à
Good
cette
evening, everyone. Welcome to this, where are we? What date are we now? November 27th. Christmas is on its way. Is everybody ready? Has everybody got their shopping done, especially in Dieppe? All right. The city of Dieppe recognizes that the land on which it operates is part of the unceded traditional ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq. The peace and friendship treaties that the Mi'kmaq sorry about that, jointly developed and signed with the British Crown in the 18th century apply to this territory. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of land or resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq title and set out the rules for what was to be a lasting relationship between the parties. Also, dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, so once again, welcome everyone. After those opening words and the call to order. Now, do we have quorum? Oh, we have two people. One person who's away. Councillor Brideau is attending online this evening. And Councillor Godbout is not there tonight. All right, without further ado, are there any conflicts of interest to declare? No? All right. Next item, adoption of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question, no questions. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. All right, so the agenda has been adopted. We will now move to item 7, presentations, and we are going to begin with 7.1. This evening we have Mr. Malenfant, who is with us this evening. It is a pleasure to have you here this evening. I think this is your second time at City Council here in Dieppe. All right. There we go. All right. Good evening, Your Worship, councillors, members of the public. So I'm representing the Kodiak detachment, and I'm replacing Ms. Chantal Farah, who was not available, but she will be here for the next meeting. So I just have a few little updates to give you, and I'll start with the community police. On November 13th, the community unit and the other members held a recruitment activity at the Vaughan Harvey at the Vaughan Harvey address. So we were able to talk to about 50 young people who are potentially interested in a police career in policing. So we took time to answer their questions and provide them with information. A number of participants were very happy with the changes that in which new police officers can return to their home communities. So you can sign an agreement with the RCMP if you become an RCMP member, and that will help you requesting that returning to New Brunswick, and I think that'll help us with recruitment. We opened a new satellite office in Moncton at 795 Main Street, And so this is a center that will serve all three communities, Moncton, Dieppe, and Riverview. This will allow us to continue our important work within the community. So just a reminder that even if there are staff working in that office, this is not a service point and it's not open to the public. There will be lots of coming and going in that office, and so we ask residents who need help to continue to go to the 520 Main Street location for assistance. Last August, the crime unit and the provincial integrated unit launched an investigation in Moncton, and we received information that a suspect was selling drugs from his place of residence. So on November 18th, there were two arrest warrants that were executed. They confiscated 1 kilogram of fentanyl, a large quantity of crystal meth, and various paraphernalia. The following week, there was a search warrant conducted on Edgett Street in Moncton in relation to a violent act that had occurred at Saint-Antoine. And when they searched the premises, they found a lot of crystal meth, cocaine, and various firearms and other items. A man and a woman were arrested and are facing charges. In terms of general investigations, on November 17th, the regional service received a call with regard to threats from an online discussion group. The threats referred to a shootout or a shooting that would take place in the future. We took those threats very seriously, and our group of investigators worked long hours that weekend, and that led to the address of two young people, and the two youth were released, and there was also an adult who was placed in custody. Our community police also worked with the school district to ensure proper communication so that they could determine the proper, ensure that the students could return to school the following Monday. And our members provided additional presence for a period after to reassure parents and the school students. So each time that a threat is uttered against schools or children, we take that very seriously and we deploy the necessary resources. So that's all I had for you this evening. If you have any questions, please ask them now. Any questions from councillors? Oh, it's very easy. It seems like it's going to be an easy night for you. So thank you for coming. You're always welcome to stay here, but we understand that you probably have other things to do this evening. So thank you again for being there and for the information that you've shared with us all. Thank you. Have a nice evening. All right, that brings us to item 7.2. And it's an update on the on-demand public transit and taxi bus service. So this is about all the transit services and options that we offer to our residents. So Mr. Jérémy Aubé is here to talk to us. Good evening, sir. All right, so I'm here this evening, as the mayor indicated, to provide an update on on-demand transit and taxi bus, and to give you a bit of context for what you'll be hearing later on this evening. So I'd like to start by giving you a bit of a visual context of what we currently offer. So as on the screen for on-demand transit, what we're seeing is essentially the zone of service for on-demand transport. So what we see in the screen is those little blue dots that we see are our stops. So that's the green is the area that we cover, and there are a set of stops that we use, virtual stops and Kodiak transpose stops. So that's how we operate the on-demand transport currently. In terms of schedules now, we provide service in the evening during the week, so 6:30 to 10 p.m., and then Saturday from 6:30 in the morning to 9:30 in the evening, and then Sunday from 10 to 6. So that's the current on-demand transport transit service. Now, the taxi bus service now, currently, the zone of service, as you see here, we have two zones in the city, the Amiraux region and the Champlain region. And so taxi buses serve regions in the city that are currently not served by regular transit service. So the Champlain sector there, and that's a transfer point that I've just circled there, and that's the IGA. And then on Amiraux, just to the south, it's the same idea. We bring people to this drop-off point here, which is located at the corner of Amiraux and Fox Creek. So in terms of schedule, Monday to Thursday, or Monday to Friday during peak hours, so 6:30 to 9:30 in the morning, and then 3:30 to 6:30 in the evening. So that's the current context. And in the recent months, what we've started doing is we've conducted an analysis. We wanted to see how on-demand transit was working, what were the opportunities for improvement or optimization. And initially, the objective was to provide service that was not provided in certain areas. And there was a bit of an overlap with regular transit. And we offered service during off-hour times. So the first thing that we saw was, well, that there were lots of, we made some improvements in transit service. We increased service. And so since we kind of were addressing that service, we saw a drop in ridership in the use of on-demand transit of about 60 or 70%. So people seem to prefer the regular transit option that has set times so that they can plan their travel. So that makes us think that we might be able to eliminate the need for on-demand transit in the same area. So now the question is, what do we do with those resources? How can we better use the on-demand transit resources, and how can we optimize regular transit and on-demand transit so that we can expand the overall level of service in the city? In terms of the taxi bus service now, we looked at our statistics and the volume of ridership, and we saw that there's quite a limited number of regular customers, so 3 to 12 per peak period. So we asked ourselves, is there an opportunity to serve that client with on-demand transit instead? So that would allow us to better use our services and to use the same technology and the plans for the on-demand transit platform that we have. And it would allow us to modernize our service as well. Another important element, by having two distinct services, it doesn't really allow us to provide a combined service. So if we could combine those clients with on-demand transit, the people who are using taxi bus service with on-demand transit, that would help us better understand the situation. And it would help us to better understand the needs and the habits of people. I talked about service optimization. So what we're looking to do is combine on-demand transportation or transit and taxi bus. And so on-demand transit is still a pilot project. And so what we would like to know is what is the permanent place for on-demand transit. This would allow us to expand the overall service area for public service transit services, and we'd have a new timetable, a better timetable from 9:30 to 3:30, and I'll show you the new schedule that we're proposing on the next slide. So the concept is essentially to have a on-demand transit zone plus public transit transfer points as well. And I have a map that I can show you that I'll show you later that explains that better. And now I'm thinking of Aviation Road and Dover Street. Those are areas where service is not currently available, but this would allow us to connect with the transit service in that area with Kodiak Transpo. And we're also considering that at certain times of day there could be a higher level of service. So we'd be looking perhaps to add a second vehicle at peak times. So this is what we're proposing. There would be a new combined territory. So the orange zone would be the new on-demand transit service zone, and green, what you see in green and purple, those are set routes of Kodiak Transpo. So these are the different routes that are offered. And so the idea is to have one zone served by public transit. So that's what I've just circled here. And then everything that's outside that zone would be served by on-demand transit. And the 3 transfer points that we see here, we're still looking at those. We're still analyzing them to see what the best location is. But essentially the idea is that we would have 3 transfer points, 1 for each line. So people that live within that orange zone, they would go to the identified point. So if you start at Champlain, for example, there are 3 lines and you want to go, it would depend on where you wanted to go as well. Now, travel within the zone would also be possible. So if you live in the Dover area and you want to go to the IGA or the co-op, then you could use the on-demand transit and you wouldn't have to transfer at all. I also would like to say that this is not a new model. Other agencies and other municipalities have done this successfully in the past. I've had a conversation with St. John Transport and microbus service in Newfoundland who offer a different a similar service, and they had very good things to say about this type of model. Now, in terms of the new schedule, and this is what it would look like. And this would be aligned with the schedule that we have with Kodiak Transpo. So Monday to Friday, 6 to 10, and then Saturday from 6 to 10, and then Sunday from 9 to 6:30. So if we want people to use this service from one end of the city to the other, those services have to be aligned. So it's really important to align those schedules. And I also want to, the little asterisk there is that we would be adding service from 9:30 to 3:30, and that would fill that gap that exists currently. So next steps now. So the first step would be to extend the existing short-term agreements. So the first quarter of 2024. And then we'll be talking about a memo later this evening that with respect to that. Then there would be a tendering process in January, implementation and coordination with stakeholders and suppliers would begin in December 2023 and would probably go till March 2024. And then we'd have to drop a mini communications plan to make sure that people use the service, understand the differences and the changes. And then finally, we would aim the start of revised on-demand transit service in April 1st, 2024. Are there any questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Aubé. I'm sure that the communications piece will be very important when we, anytime you make changes, you have to really be careful that we can reach the greatest number of people possible. So, all right, Councillor Melissa Janet is the first one. All right, thank you for the presentation. It's great. I like to see that the schedule is increasing, and I like the alignment with Kodiak Transpo. I have a few questions. So first of all, now that's going to be quite an extended zone. So we have 2 on-demand transit buses that are in operation. So they're going to be starting at the airport or starting from the airport, and then they go to Dover and back. Is that an effective use of those vehicles? Well, what we currently have is, this is just an expanded zone of what we have already. So, that what we're anticipated is that we can ask, or we can meet that demand. Now, I mentioned the airport sector and Dover. Generally speaking, this is a smaller area than what we were serving before. So we would just be doing the link between the various bus lines. All right, well, it's great that we're optimizing the service. Another question that I had is that I have lots of parents who've come to see me say that on-demand transit is excellent. I can book it for my preteen or my young teen, and if they need to go to such and such an activity. But this new service will be less available for them now. Now they're going to have to use transit, the public transit, the actual bus lines. So I'm not sure what parents are going to think of this. They were almost able to go door to door with the on-demand transit, but now that might be a bit of a challenge for them in terms of communicating with the parents who use that service. I don't know if you've thought of that. That's a very good point. Yeah. And so we'll have to look at that when we drop the communications plan. Now, on public transit is safe, but sometimes it's just about explaining to people how transit works. Now, we did consider the difference, that was going to result from reducing the service sign. So there are some losses, but there are gains as well, and I think the gains are greater than the losses. And I would also add that we're going to set this system up, and it's new, and we'll assess what works well and what works less well. And if it is a problem, then we can revisit it to try to correct the difficulty or the problems. Well, I agree too that our regular lines are very safe, and I don't see I have no problem sending my kids on those buses. So maybe it's a communications solution, but it was kind of those parents, that was a way to bring them into using public transit, but so we'll have to look into that further. Councillor Le Boutier, thank you, Your Worship. What is the impact on the budget? The budget was approved a few weeks ago. We'd included the amount a few weeks ago. So the big piece is the 9:30 to 3:30 service in the afternoon. But there will not be any additional impact on the 2024 budget. All right, perfect. All right, the on-demand transit service capacity is what? We have one big bus going around. We have a one minibus with 11 seats. So are we going to subcontract service, or? Well, we have one vehicle for 11 passengers. So, and we have a second vehicle that we can use when there's more traffic. And what we saw that on Saturday afternoons, Saturday we had to bring on a second vehicle to meet the increased demand. But with the statistics that we're seeing since September, the increased bus transit has completely eliminated that usage. So we're going to continue to operate the way we have. So we have one main bus, and we will go and get the van if we need more. So, and that will allow us to not have problems during peak times. But again, we'll have to evaluate how things are going. We'll have to look at the capacity issues, and if we see there's a problem, we'll have to adjust. But we won't know the total impact until we see how people use the service. We're going to continue to study the usage of these vehicles. All right. All right, the cost for on-demand transit is what? You mean in terms of budget? No, no, sorry, I mean to use the service for residents. The service is still free because it's a pilot project. We had discussions with our providers, or suppliers rather, and since we have a model now where we have to do transfers, I think there are two challenges. One, there's a payment management system. So going from on-demand transit to a Kodiak transit bus, so we want to avoid having to make people pay twice. So that's a challenge. And then the second challenge is how to integrate those rates within our service. So we'd have to buy equipment for our vehicles. So the idea was to maintain the service free of charge for the on-demand transit for the time being, and then we can explore options to introduce payment in the future. But we want to avoid people having to pay twice for transit. People have to go to. We want people to be able to get to from point A to point B without having to pay twice or so. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks and coming months, but we haven't decided yet if we're going to incorporate a payment. But so we'll have to keep thinking about this. Yeah, there's not a challenge if one service is free and then the other service is not free. I can see why it might be challenging in the future. You know, we have to try to balance things. You know, people are going to say, well, why do I have to pay if the other person doesn't have to pay? But at the same time, most people will be transferring and they will have to pay. When we started looking at the question, and I don't have the figures with me yet, but I can go and get them for you. But we were trying, you know, there are some people who will have a completely free trip within the on-demand transit zone. Those people are not very, like, they only represent about 10% of users, but we'll have to look at how we can incorporate rates into our project. And I think it's great that we're trying different things, and I think that'll bring us somewhere different in the future. Great, thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.
Il n'y a personne d'autre. Alors,
No other questions?
comme vous savez, je suis grandement en faveur
As you know, I'm very much in favor of mass transit, and it should be free for everyone in the city of Dieppe. It remains a goal and a challenge that I set for management and for the funds that we get. I know it may not be popular in some areas, but the reality is if we want people to think more green and we reduce the number of cars on the roads, we really need to have a healthy mass transit system, even if it's we who need to pay for the health of the system. All of our citizens can take advantage of it at that point without any discrimination. We know in the past we've undertaken projects, and often the comment I got back from people was, you talk a lot, but I can't get rid of the second car that I have because you're here, there, everywhere, and you're not settled. So I'm not criticizing you specifically. I'm talking about the overall situation, and this might be an objective that we'll have to attain. That's it. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Aubé. Next item on the agenda, questions by members of the public. Members of the vast number of public people here tonight? None? There are no questions on the internet either. Let's move on to item 9, adoption of minutes, regular council meeting, moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question, there are no questions. All those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. I'm sorry, the motion is passed. This now brings us to item 9.1, regular council meeting held on November 14, 2023. We've just done that, right? Sorry, I got mixed up there. Item 10, motions, memorandums, and nominations. 10.1, administration. Mr. Melançon. Periodically, we make public the directives adopted at closed meetings. So there's development on Municipal West Avenue, which was passed last June 13, 2022. Two key elements for this ratification of the development agreements that we bought some land to get a right-of-way and a contribution to build part of a sidewalk. So these are the two apartment buildings on Boulevard Dieppe, not too far from the co-op. So that's the first directive that we're making public tonight. The second one is we formally supported the application for the shoreline trail for the SCRSC. This is the trail that would link Shediac and Dieppe. We gave our formal approval and support to that partnership. And the last one deals, as you know, the federal government announced a housing accelerate fund, $4 billion in order to stimulate the construction of housing units in the country. So the city was supposed to put forward an action plan, which would mean 7 initiatives to stimulate the construction of housing units in our community. These 7 initiatives undertaken by the city of Dieppe, the first to have accessory buildings and let them be twin, implement a policy on affordable housing. Third, implement a system of electronic permits, and then extend Dieppe Boulevard. 5, put in payments to finance new housing sector. 6, pass a new subdivision bylaw. And 7, have an action plan for urban increase. And so this application was put forward for a project worth $5.5 million. We are still awaiting an answer to this application, and we hope to get this financing in order to make some very strategic investments in various parts of our municipality. So we are making these directives public. To read them, Councillor Genet. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council ratified the directives adopted at closed meetings of Council concerning the following topics. 1, development agreement, Principal West Avenue, 725026 NB Inc., adopted June 13, 2022. 2, Shoreline Trail, a funding application, SCRSC, adopted May 8, 2023. 3, Action Plan, Housing Accelerator Fund, adopted July 10, 2023. I so move, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Genet, seconded by Councillor Le Boutillier on the question. There being none, all those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. Carried. This brings us now to 10.2, urban mobility. This is a presentation that you heard by Mr. Aubé. We're talking about an extension of the agreement for taxi bus and on-demand transit until March 31st, 2024. This will allow us to then go to a call for tenders to make sure all the contracts are done at the same time. So this will authorize the extension of the agreement to March 31st, 2024. To read the resolution, Councillor Le Boutillier. The Council allow the extension of agreement for on-demand transit and taxi bus service with Maurice Richard, provider, until March 31st, 2024. I so move. Your Worship, moved by Councillor Le Boutillier, seconded by Councillor Lantin. On the question, Mr. Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question with regard to April 1st, 2024. The on-demand transportation service and taxi bus will be paid for. Yes, what we're doing is extending that service, and we're simply seeing if the taxi bus will be included in that. Thank you, Madame Genet. Thank you, Your Worship. Just to really make sure, so from April 1st on, we will no longer have the services of this provider. So we're 100% sure that we will no longer need a second bus for rush hour? No, in the tender call we'll do this winter, the service provider will be there for the service that begins April 1st, 2024. We'll do the regular tender calls, and we'll combine the service offer and all the details that needed to be shared then. And with regard to communications, it will also be done to provide citizens an awareness of the changes. Yes. we'll be doing that this winter and developing the key messages and amending things on the website. We won't be waiting for April 1st to launch this communication, but we'll be doing it a few weeks before, so it'll be fresh in people's memories that these changes are coming and what the changes will be. Great, thank you. I see no further questions. Oh, Councillor Lantagne, sorry. No? Okay. All in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. The resolution is carried as read. This brings us to 10.3 for appointments. With regard to planning advisory committee, there are 3 renewals. You'll see that 2 are for a period of 12 months. And so at the beginning of next year, we'll be identifying the committees and the positions that will be falling vacant, and we'll also be advertising to recruit people who might be interested in sitting these committees. So Claudette Leblanc and Richard Godet will be renewed for 1 year, and Raymond Landry for a period of 3 years. Thank you. Will someone read this resolution? There are 2 separate requests. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council authorized the reappointment of the following members on the Planning Advisory Committee. Claudette Leblanc, term ending December 31st, 2024. Raymond Landry, term ending December 31st, 2026. And Richard Godet, term ending December 31st, 2024. I so move, Your Worship. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question. Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. The resolution is carried as read. This brings us to 10.3.2, NB Crime Stoppers. There's another appointment, a renewal actually, of Yvon Comeau for a period of 3 years until December 2026. So this is a renewal request. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau for the reading. Thank you. That Council authorized the reappointment of Yvon Comeau on the Board of Directors of New-Brunswick Crime Stoppers for another term ending December 31st, 2026. I so move, Your Worship. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Genet. On the question. Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. The resolution is carried as presented. For the other items, municipal bylaws, no notice of motion. We come now to our favorite item, item 13, inquiries and announcements by members of council. I think last time I started on this side. So you have the floor. Councillor Lantagne. Nothing for me this evening, Your Worship. Thank you.
Madame Turgeon-Roy, excusez-moi.
Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to take advantage of this evening to promote the Christmas market at Maison Toiron this Sunday and the following Sunday, December 10th. I encourage residents to come and shop for your holiday gifts and encourage artisans. So there's a great program all day long. Have a look at the website for the City of Dieppe. That's it. Great. Have a good week. Thank you, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have anything for this week. Thank you. Councillor Genet. Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to come back to a meeting of the Transportation Committee, which we held recently, We heard the presentation concerning electric buses and what we have to do to undertake the transition. During the course of the presentation, they gave us the actual routes and what it would mean to change them and put electric buses along these routes. So some lines are going to be more efficient than others to have this done because of the length of the trip and the size of the batteries. So some of these trips are going to be more difficult than others. The assessment is based on what's available now, has not taken into consideration what would happen if the offer increased. So we think about 15 years to make the transition as a whole. That's part of the goals we have. And the challenge will be with regard to the infrastructure and to add chargers. So that's it. I don't know if Jeremy had anything to add about the presentation. Well, I think you covered the main points. It's a very big challenge. We think about vehicles first, but we need the infrastructure, the operation, and ticket prices. You know, it's a multifaceted challenge, and it will be interesting to see how things unroll. It's a good starting point with what's going to happen in the future. And we're going to continue with Kodiak Transpo. And we have a good hand on the file right now for the citizens of Dieppe. And we'll have this for mass transit in our city. With regard to conferences this weekend, we at the municipal Union of Municipalities, we are united. We were together and we wanted to put forward solutions to all the challenges we have as municipalities. We met inspiring people who have their heart in the right place for their communities. And it motivated us to be better leaders when we came back to our own home communities. We also have access to conference speakers who inspired us. We had Diane Kaelin Sukra, who was a guest speaker, and she talked about how to collaborate, how to cooperate and promote projects. It was really interesting. Thank you. Yes, that presentation, I'm very glad that you mentioned it because it was a very engaging one. It was very interesting for many. Councillor Le Boutillier. Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to share. Councillor Godet. Thank you. Same for me. I have nothing to share. You saw Santa Claus on the weekend? Yes, I saw him. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure that you saw Santa Claus on the weekend. With that, I don't have anything to add. So, oh yes, oh sorry. My friend, Councillor Brideau. You'll have to turn on your microphone. Thank you. We hear you now. Thank you, Your Worship. The only thing I wanted to come back to or to mention the residents is that winter has arrived. And for those who park along the streets mainly, to maybe and clean our routes. And I wish you a pleasant winter and a good week ahead. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. So I wish you a great way till the end of the year. We have a few meetings left. You know, when sometimes we say that when we compare with the, others, we console each other. And you know, I was at that municipalities meeting on the weekend as well. I don't think we have anything more to ask of others, but we should be thanking our employees and staff for all the work that you do too often, or maybe not often enough. Be they with flowers or not, we're going to continue in that direction. And I think after the next meeting, I think we have one more meeting before the end of the year. And then we'll wish you a happy end to a year. And so please look forward to everything that's going to be happening ahead. And we hope that in the coming weeks, we'll be getting good news from our federal and provincial colleagues. You never know, you know, it would be great to get a Christmas present. We're all expecting gifts. We'll remain good kids, and we'll hope for the best. Good night to you all.